But we're here. We'll be kicking over any second now. Shouts to us.
Hey, it's Thanksgiving Eve. These things happen.
I'm blaming you for throwing off my normal.
No. This is my fault. Even though it's not my fault, I'm with you there.
Yeah, there we go. Now we are officially live on YouTube. So you missed my entire spiel shouting out Ben for winning 200K in NFL this weekend. Now I will put a link that will pop up above everyone with a link directly to that video so you guys can check it out. Oh, God. We did like a full 2 minutes and 30 seconds there that I completely wasted. I'm not great at this.
Hey, it happens. Thanksgiving Eve, man. 14 games. We got a lot of moving parts. That's what's going on.
We do. So let's get into the plugs. Shout out to Yahoo Sports for being the presenting sponsor of this show. They had, and I say had, they were running a contest with a monster overlay. 50%, in fact. 50K prize pool. They put in 75. That filled almost immediately. That is long gone. They are now running the 28K Turkey Baller, $11 entry fee. Still the same sort of management structure, but that's the biggest thing they've got going at a reasonable buy-in. They've also got the 200K Baller, 10K to first, but that's going to be 22,000 entries as well. Go check out what we've got to offer for Yahoo. I'm dropping Emacs Cash Game article into the YouTube chat right now. Head to the bottom of the article, hit the link, use the promo code AWESEMO, and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. Yahoo is the only place where you can become a turkey baller. There's a new one for Laffy that I know he's not listening to here, but he'll appreciate it nonetheless. They've got contests for everybody up and down the buy-in structure, less management fees than everywhere else. You're seeing a lot of 10 max contests, although they do have 150s with CSV edit. Whatever you need to find, it is there, and it will likely be softer competition for you, so highly recommend you go check it out. I've got yesterday's lineup study pulled up. Not going to be too much to dig in here on a 2-game slate. Not a lot we can glean from this stuff. Oh,
no, not really.
We just got a really good question from Mike Campbell in YouTube chat. Did you have any Stephen F. Austin money line last night?
I didn't. I was sweating out Colorado and Clemson. I was watching that game. I honestly turned it off because I thought, close, but they weren't going to get there. That's one of the biggest money lines I've ever seen. So good for the Lumberjacks.
Craziness. I saw the highlights this morning.
Insane.
Wild. I don't know what you do. Take a shoe off and fire it at him while he's running. Just anything you could do to like trip him up. You just need to end that game.
Yeah, outrageous. So it's wild times right now across the sports world.
Most owned player last night on DraftKings, Luka Doncic, followed closely by Kristaps Porzingis. Luka, not great, 3.8x value. Probably didn't matter all that much. In the winning lineup, I have this filtered by 150 right now. The winning lineup was a chop between a guy that entered 4 and a guy that entered 19 lineups. 19, really weird number. I think that you could probably tell how much was in his balance prior to that, judging them by the 19 entries. Went Will Barton, Jordan Mccray, Paul George, Thomas Bryant, Porzingis, Lou Will, Plumlee, and Kawhi. It's nice to see Plumlee get in here. I played a ton. Turns out it didn't matter at all for me. Not a lot of familiar names in the top 150. It's just one of those days. Biggest guy that you needed to have last night, I guess, was probably either Jordan Mccray or Jeremy Grant. 3,600 and 3,700. They were the two biggest values, but all in all, just kind of gross. No one broke 50 total fantasy points. Paul George at 47, Kawhi at 45, Luka at 43. There wasn't really any down. I mean, Luka for 11-4 was going to become problematic, but nobody went crazy. Nobody had a 70-point game you needed to have, so I don't have much to add on a 2-gamer.
No, I don't really either. It was, you just said it. Luka, just on the raw points, and you know, I watched the Deeper Dive with Laffy and Adam, and they hit on this. There were so many value guys that Luka, even not in, it was obviously a tough matchup. He still became pertinent, and guys like Grant, Plumlee filled out nicely. So weird 2-gamer, and like I said, now we move to the complete opposite with 14 of these bad boys.
It's gonna be wild, and we're about to get into it right now. One final shout out to Rinpack. Took down the qualifier on FanDuel yesterday, heading to Los Angeles in mid-March. So another Awesemo representative heading to LA, joining at the very least Alex and Tom. Those are two names that I definitely saw on the list. If I'm missing anybody, Eddie, if you've already 1-800 Eddie, if you've already qualified, I apologize for letting you out on this one. But Alex has got 3 seats already. Tom's got 1. Rinpack's got 1. Cornering the market on them there. Shouts to Awesemo.com.
It's time for you to get a seat. Got to join the club, man.
I tried. I paid $600 for no seat whatsoever last night.
Yeah, there's also that. That's never a fun time.
Nah, not at
Been
all.
there.
Oh, well, what are you going to do? I pay for fun. That's all.
That's right.
I was going to waste it on FIFA packs or, I don't know, something stupid.
Turkeys.
All right. Yeah, turkeys. Cornish game hens. That's my Thanksgiving tomorrow. Got to dry brine those birds today.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm not a big turkey guy, so I'm with you.
Not actual news. All right, I'm going to retweet our Twitter link right now, and then you guys should hit the like button now that you're getting in here, but I think it's time for us to start. We've got 14 games to get through. You ready?
I'm ready when you are, my man. Let's do it.
Here we go. Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets, 116 implied total for the Celtics, 109.5 for Brooklyn. Kemba Walker back now after injuring his left neck. I will never stop making that joke until he stops being slightly injured because of it. Marcus Smart has a jammed knuckle. He'll be fine. Daniel Tice already ruled out. So, some things to like here. Kemba Walker is currently chalk, 28% owned on FanDuel, which is a big number for a 14-game slate. Really, anything in double digits needs to be paid attention to. He's $6,700 on DraftKings, already at 31% ownership. Only other real ownership coming in is for Enes Kanter on FanDuel. He's $4,500, $5K on DK. I like Boston a lot more than what's showing up here in terms of ownership. I'm in for Kemba clearly at the cheap price tags, but I'll happily get to a little bit of Jaylen Brown. I'll happily get to a little bit of Robert Williams at 3,700 on FanDuel if he's going to go unowned. Same for 41 on DK. I want more Kanter on DraftKings. What do you want to do with Boston?
Yeah, I mean, when I logged on this morning and I saw the Kemba price, I kind of did a double take. I know he's been over that in the injury. This isn't something where they don't need to ease him back. It was a neck injury. It's not an ankle. It's not something we're going to be restricted most likely. So that stood out. Tice being out. Yeah. Kanter, flat 5K on DraftKings stood out as well. And you mentioned, 14 games ownership. It's not that it's not important, but it's going to be wildly dispersed. You're going to be able to find reasonable guys at non-chalk across this slate. So even if you buy into Kemba, there's plenty of leverage to differentiate with 13 other games. And it's hard not to have some exposure to the Celtics team.
Yeah, I mean, that 6,700 for Kemba is just silly. Unless we get word that he's only playing 20 minutes or something, which is, by all accounts, he's just going to be back. I give him 30. He could easily play more than that. I'm all over it.
I don't know why they would ease him back with something like this. Maybe we'll get word, but I think it's all systems go, and it's a clear spot, even though it's going to be popular.
Any thoughts on Kanter or Robert Williams as potential center value?
Yeah, I think Kanter makes sense. We know when he gets the minutes, he's highly productive, double threat, no doubt about it. Going against, we'll see what's up with DeAndre Jordan on the other side of this. Robert Williams, yeah, you mentioned, if you're looking for cheap value, if you want to pay down at center, that can be a way to do it. I don't know how much you'll have to do that unless you're jamming. And we'll say, we have, of course, plenty of superstars because we have everybody with Giannis, LeBron, and et cetera. So wasn't certainly not going to be a primary priority, but yeah, you could certainly look there.
Okay. Yeah, I like both of them basically equally. They grade out same relative to salary. I feel more comfortable with Kanter, but if Robert Williams is getting zero ownership, he can blow 4,100 out of the water if he just has like a good block game or if Kanter gets into foul trouble.
Yeah, there are avenues. And I do think, it's very early in the day. Of course, you'll probably get a decent, I think most people are going to say, look at Kemba and look at Cantor. Maybe Williams is a little underutilized.
On the Brooklyn side, Spencer Dinwiddie now up to 8,300 on FanDuel, 7,800 on DK. No one on the Nets is in double digits in ownership on either FanDuel or DK. I assume DeAndre Jordan is back. If he ends up not playing, Jared Allen has been priced up pretty dramatically. I don't think that I would be getting there the same way that I did a couple days ago. I don't really see anything that I need from Brooklyn outside of maybe a little bit of Dinwiddie, but tough defensive matchup, neutral pace spot. Everybody's kind of priced up now that Kyrie and Karis LeVert have been out for a while. Anything for you from Brooklyn?
No, I mean, I guess if you're looking for positives of a 14-game slate, you don't have to force it. And this is a team where, if you told me you're really interested in Dinwiddie, I wouldn't push back. I get it. Obviously, with no Kyrie, he's playing the minutes. He's going to have the volume. But the price tag has caught up to some of that. I don't see a ton of wiggle room. DeAndre Jordan, we'll have to monitor that. And outside of those guys, in terms of Allen, I don't have a ton of interest in the wings when you look at guys like Joe Harris, Prince. I'm kind of indifferent to the plays. I think with 13 other games, just so many other guys I'd rather go to.
That works for me. We're going to have to keep it moving. You guys got to remember, there are 14 games, now 13, that we have to go through. Most of this slate is completely useless from a DFS perspective. So
it's true.
Be prepared. Speaking of two useless teams, not a lot to talk about in this one. Charlotte Hornets, Detroit Pistons. Pistons 4-point favorites in Charlotte. On the Hornets side, double-digit ownership going to Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier on DraftKings. They are both just under the number on FanDuel. That's probably the extent of what I would play as well. A little bit of Graham on DK, a little bit of Rozier on DK. Miles Bridges, I guess, is viable at 5K, but I mean, they have a 106.25 implied total. There are multiple teams in the 120s and like 15 teams in the 110s or higher. This is just a really difficult spot for me to want to allocate major exposure.
Same. And actually, I was a little surprised to hear you say that they might be somewhat popular just because they're right next to Kemba in terms of salary on DraftKings. And I thought maybe they'd be, a pivot and then I'd have some interest. But if they're going to garner ownership relative to what we see in a 14-game slate, I feel pretty comfortable kind of omitting this team. They're just bad, and I don't love this matchup. Don't have much to say in the front court. I believe Zeller will be back, even if he wasn't. PJ Washington, I'm not too confident in any of these spots. So this is one I think we can save a little time with the old Hornets.
Yeah, it's
bad.
It's really bad. No one looks good is probably the easiest way to say this.
No, and that's, again, 14 games. It's not like you can't make a case for some of these guys, but you just don't have to go there.
Yo, can you stop leaf blowing today, man? It's still going. That's why I understand that you're not responding. I'll push this over to the Pistons while the leaf blowers handle their blowing. Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, surprise, surprise, the only guys in double digits of ownership. The only guys that are projected at anything other than 1% for the Pistons, either site. Drummond is at 22% for 9,300 on FanDuel, just 5% on DK, where he's $100 more expensive. Blake, on the other hand, 7K on both sites, 33% owned on FanDuel, 26% owned on DraftKings. I think he's dramatically over-owned for this spot. I like Blake. I think that he's better than the 1 fantasy point per minute he's been putting up so far this season. But for 7K on a 14-game slate, if he's chalk, I just don't need to be there.
Totally agree. And it's a product of the ownership. But in a vacuum, I totally get that. There's a ton of room for upside. He hasn't been playing great, but the minutes can be there. But then you just look at this slate as a whole, and we'll of course touch on these guys. You have guys like Harrell. Isaac is close. And then you can work down to some of the mid-range or pay up in those front court spots. I don't think you need to force it. And I was actually stunned to hear you say that, again, that's a pretty sizable ownership with 14 games. This is not a 6-game slate where guys are going to be up there. that is a massive chunk of ownership if that's what he comes in at.
Yeah, like I have him, roughly around 1.1 and change fantasy points per minute. He's a nice value. I understand having him rotated through your lineups. I don't see him as like a concentration piece on a 14 gamer. Just too much.
Neither do I. Nope. And again, that price tag is going to give you some room. Yeah, 1.1, as you just mentioned, that's kind of what I'm seeing. I just don't know exactly how often he's going to get you there with 30% of your friends right with you in these giant field tournaments. So when you have, the one thing with 14 games, you're going to have multiple pivots at each price point. It's not like you're in dead zones. You will have options. And with so many other guys, I will certainly consider pivoting.
Okay. I got to shout out Marcus in chat. I don't know if you saw this. Ben is the type of dude to save his money and be responsible in life.
Yeah.
Ben makes me want to get my life together. Man, if you heard some of the bets that Ben is sweating.
Yeah, that part we don't. Before and after the stream, that would be a show in itself. Some real good times before we click that button, that's for sure. I do love to gamble, though.
Yeah. When you've got multiple figures on Moldova to cover a 6.5 goal soccer line or something ridiculous.
Rwanda, African qualifiers, they'll get you every time.
Alrighty, I don't have anything else for Hornets Pistons. It's going to get even worse.
Well, that's debatable. That's one of the worst of the 14.
Yeah. Cavs Magic.
Okay.
Potentially the lowest implied total on the slate. It's either going to be this one or Pacers Jazz. Cavs are 1.5 point favorites at home against Orlando. As of right now, I'm projecting Kevin Love out. He is questionable. Has not played in their past 2 games. No one plays tomorrow for Thanksgiving. This just strikes me as a spot where most established guys that are nursing injuries and have been already out, I don't think they come back for just this one. I think they just take a day's rest, go have a Thanksgiving day, and then, try to get back at it on Friday. So that will change a little bit about what I'm talking about. No one's really getting any ownership on the Cavs. They are the worst defense in the league, by the way. If Love is indeed out, I will get to some Tristan Thompson on DK. I will get to some Larry Nance on DraftKings. I won't be terribly happy about either of those decisions, but that's just a minutes thing. Do you want to do anything with Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, Larry Nance is someone that I think he'll be somewhat popular and is an obvious guy, but if Love sits, you got to like the minutes and the production that he's going to give you at a price tag that it's adjusting, but I still don't think it's fully there. Double threat, highly productive. The matchup, it's not the fastest paced game, but I have no problem with them at home. Orlando hasn't won a road game. That's just pathetic. So just Nance is someone I feel pretty comfortable with in the mid-range at one of those, power forward or center eligible on DraftKings. So you have some flexibility there.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to point out for Cleveland. Like Chetty at 5K across the board. I already have Love out and he doesn't look good. So Darius Garland at 11% ownership on FanDuel will go away at some point, I would imagine. But I'm not there for any of this. This is going to be a real tough spot.
Yeah, it's a terrible game with 2 bad teams. I was just typing something in chat. Did you talk about Orlando? Because I wanted to ask you about Jonathan Isaac in particular.
I have not. We can get to it right now. He is not owned today.
God, there's such a tough. It's a guy that, we know he has boom bust. He's just been doing it so heavily with blocks and steals. The peripherals are ridiculous right now. 4, 6, and 5 total in the last 3 games. Certainly that's going to regress. You don't know if it's tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be there in a large capacity, but if I can get cheap leverage, if he's not popular, I do have some interest in Isaac on the other side.
Yeah, 8K on FanDuel, 8% ownership, 7,500 on DraftKings, 1% ownership. I could be a little light on him, but the guy that I actually like the most in this game is probably Evan Fournier, also not owned. 6,500 on FanDuel, 6,400 on DraftKings. I think that he probably just sees like the biggest boost of potential scoring, and especially against a Cleveland team that's running out a second-year guard, a rookie guard, Jordan Clarkson. Not exactly a vaunted defensive backcourt. So I'd be looking to Fournier. We also have Terrence Ross and Khem Birch on FanDuel, both at 39% ownership. Big numbers, 16 apiece on DraftKings. Ross seeing bigger minutes now with both Aaron Gordon and Vooch out. Similar story for Khem Birch as a starter. Ross is $4,500 on FanDuel, $500 cheaper than he is on DK. Khem Birch, same price on FanDuel and DraftKings. I like both guys, but I don't like them if they're in 40% of my lineups.
I mean, certainly price, and we always preach, site specific in terms of pricing. You're getting that nice discount there that makes them more appealing, but you're also going to get increased ownership. I had not even considered that. Khem Birch, I mean, the minutes, foul trouble just not being good. There's a lot of ways this goes wrong. I don't know, you're going to have to look to some cheapies today, even if you build balanced. I don't anticipate this being a massive like stars and scrubs unless some value opens up. But even so, getting a couple of these lower end guys is going to be pertinent. I'm just not sure that I'm going to try to do it with heavy chalk down there.
Oh yeah, I don't see the need. I like the Terrence Ross play. I don't like it at 40% ownership, but he's a guy that I would expect to have like 20 of. Khem Birch for 40% ownership. I assume that tumbles. He's averaging 0.48 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days.
Yeah, well, just needs like 60 minutes, couple overtimes. He'll be right there.
Yeah, he does. That was really what he needs to save him. I mean, I think he's better than that, obviously, but you're clear of this aggressive chalk.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really not there in a large capacity unless that ownership really dissipates.
And shout out to Travel Brews on YouTube chat for just figuring out that you could have late swap on DraftKings.
Hey, better late than never.
Yeah, better late swap than never. Indiana and Utah, Pacers 103.25 implied total, Jazz 101.75. This is sort of like the Cavs Magic game, but with good teams, depending on how you feel about the Magic. No one in this game on either side is in double digits in ownership except for Malcolm Brogdon on DraftKings at 6,800. He should be chalk. That price is way too low. He's 8,300 on FanDuel. And after that, I kind of agree with it. I'll get to small amounts of Donovan Mitchell. I think that Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis are both in play, but there are no core pieces in this game. Two of the 10 best defenses in the league. The only thing that I want with any sort of volume is Malcolm Brogdon on DraftKings.
Are you assuming that Gobert sits or what?
So I have Gobert in, oddly enough. And most of that is just due to the fact that it's the Jazz. I don't get the sense that he is going to sit. I know that kind of goes exactly opposite to my thought process from Kevin Love previously, almost to a T. They both sat out 2 games. Gobert just feels less problematic than Love for me. So I did put Gobert in. If Rudy Gobert is out, and we are projecting Rudy Gobert in per the ownership. If Rudy Gobert is out, you'll want to take a little bit of a look at Tony Bradley, 4,805K, but I still don't expect him to be a good value given the price tags.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a two-way street. So Tony Bradley would become, I think, a viable punt. It's not someone I'm going to jam in. And certainly for me, I have no problem with Sabonis and Turner, but if Gobert sits, I feel a lot more comfortable going to someone like Turner. And even Brogdon to a lesser extent. Now he's just underpriced specifically on DraftKings, as you mentioned. And I will have some exposure even if Gobert plays, but there's no doubt it's a massive upgrade if he sits for this Pacers team.
It changes the entire outlook defensively for the Jazz. Still a great defense, but not the same sort of thing when you have the best defensive player in basketball anchoring the center of that, anchoring the paint. So something to pay attention to. We should get word before shootout whether or not we're going to be seeing Gobert. And the good news is this is a 7:00 start, so we're going to know one way or the other.
Do you have any interest in Bogdanovich? Just shooting the lights out right now for Utah. The price is, I think, somewhat premium. I'm not really there, but he is someone he is playing well. And if he continues to, shoot at this clip from 3, he's going to be in play.
Nothing crazy. He's a guy that I would expect to get as filler.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, no one standing out in this game outside of Brogdon aggressively on DraftKings. Donovan Mitchell for 13.9 on fantasy draft is not too shabby either.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Mitchell is someone in a slate like this. I don't think you're going to see his name uttered a ton, regardless of the site. And he's a fantastic player. We know what he can do in terms of ceiling.
I think that's it for Pacers Jazz. You can tell by the colors on my screen right now for those that are watching. Lots of really, really low implied totals. Cavs 102, 101 for the Magic, 103, 101, 100 for the Kings, 100 for the Knicks. Starting at 8 o'clock, we get just overwhelming amounts of offense. So business is about to pick up, as they say, but not here. 76ers and Sacramento Kings. Sixers 110 implied total, Kings 100.5. Sixers defense fantastic. Everyone should be healthy for this one. On the Sacramento side, everybody that's been in should be in. We've got Joel Embiid at 10% ownership on FanDuel at 9,700, 16% at 9,100 on DK. Tobias Harris is 12% owned at 6,500. That's it for the double-digit guys on the Sixers, and I basically agree with that. I like getting to 10 to 15% of Joel Embiid, and I like 10 to 15% of Tobias Harris on DraftKings. Does anybody else stand out to you?
No, I mean, Embiid is very interesting just because he's coming off the old bagel, which is not a real thing. Easy bounce back spot. They're at home. They should roll. I would expect him to be aggressive early and often. But other than that, no, I'm kind of in line with you. It's a game. I'm not going to start projecting blowout risk because that's not a thing. In my mind, Ben Simmons, he's picked it up in recent games, starting to hit a groove. Certainly a threat for a triple-double, as we all know. But other than that, I don't see a ton that I'm missing. Is there anything that I'm missing in your eyes?
No, I don't think so. $41 Joel Embiid on Yahoo, I think, is pretty appealing. But no, I mean, it's just not that kind of game. Sacramento's defense is roughly average. This is a slight pace down spot for the Sixers. There's just not that much to like. It's Embiid and a little bit of Harris.
Fair enough. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Simmons? I know I mentioned him briefly there. Are you just indifferent?
Mostly indifferent. I like him more on DraftKings for 7,600 than I do on FanDuel at 87. I believe he's point guard, small forward, right? Yeah. So he just naturally fits into things better. So he's a bit more of like a Swiss Army knife for your lineups. You can move him around pretty easily, but nothing too crazy. I'm really going to be all over everything that starts from 8 o'clock on. Sacramento side, no one in double digits in ownership. I think that's kind of crazy. I'm perfectly fine getting to some Rashawn Holmes, 6,600 on FanDuel, 6K on DraftKings. 6K on DraftKings in particular. Clearly a tough spot against Embiid. And then Cory Joseph is 4,600 on DraftKings. I've got him playing 34 minutes. I think that he's one of the few decent value options for the day. He's not great, but the minutes are there. As long as people continue to be out, I expect him to get sizable run. He played 34.7 minutes in the last game and 35.8 in the game before that. Both of those games had Bogdanovich. So if he plays 34 minutes, I think that he needs to be talked about. And at only 8% ownership, I think that's a decent value.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can hear me because it's just anarchy outside this window, but
You're good. I can barely hear it.
Yeah, Holmes is someone I also have some interest in. You got to worry about foul trouble. This guy racks them up, as you can see in the game logs. But again, that's just in the range of outcomes, and it builds into his upside. If you get the good side of that, certainly can pay off in a big way. And then, as you mentioned, Cory Joseph, one of my favorite pay down options in one of the guards situations.
I love it. Not as enamored with Cory Joseph for 5K on FanDuel. The price is sort of fine, but you don't need that kind of construction on a day like today. And there's one other potential relative value option at point guard that we will get to eventually. 7 o'clock games, done and dusted. We're done 5. We still have 58 minutes to go. We're at a much better pace than I normally am with one Dave Loughran. Final game that starts at the 7 o'clock hour, though. 7:30 tip-off. Toronto Raptors, New York Knicks. Raptors 10.5 point favorites at home. Knicks based on what I have in here right now, have a 100 implied total. Hopefully that'll drop below 100 because they stink. Siakam, Van Vliet playing monster minutes. I have them both in for 38. That number could be significantly higher, although against the Knicks, maybe they won't need it. No one on the Raptors is in double digits in ownership except for Siakam on DraftKings at just 10%. I like Siakam. I like Van Vliet. I really like Norm Powell for 5K on FanDuel. I like him even more for 5,200 on DraftKings. I think Marc Gasol for 5,400 on DraftKings also pretty interesting. There's no ownership here, so I like getting to some of these guys that just soak up a ton of minutes for Toronto. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean, Siakam is someone it's hard not to like him. You're weighing him against someone like Embiid, though. That's really where I come in because there's so many good options. They're at home. They should crush the poor Knicks, who are just terrible. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable going there. I think the floor is very sturdy. I don't think you're going to run into too many risk of ruin there. But other than that, honestly, I think this is a pretty just bad game in general. I didn't have a ton of interest in it. Outside of Siakam, we haven't even talked about the Knicks, who it's just bad across the board at this point. But yeah, even with that Lowry out, I didn't have much to say about this backcourt.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really there, to be honest. There's just so many other mid-range guards. Going back to what we talked about earlier with Kemba, and we have so many games left. Just other priorities for me over a guy like Van Vliet.
See, I'm seeing it as like if Van Vliet is 4% owned on FanDuel and 1% owned on DraftKings, I think that he ends up being the guy that I just end up with because other people are on things a bit too aggressively.
And that's
I'm
fair.
also guessing right now.
No, I mean, if you can get easy leverage, what's the worst that can happen? You're not hedging your total portfolio. But for me, there's just other flyers that I think at a similar price that I'm going to go to before I get to Van Vliet.
That's fair. Are those flyers Dennis Smith Jr. and Wayne Ellington and Damian Dotson?
Potentially, but I'm going to go with survey says no.
That's fair.
Just so bad. I have to watch them every night. They're just incredibly, incredibly bad. And Barrett, I believe, is in. You have him projected in, right?
Yeah, Barrett is good to go. Well, he's questionable. He had an illness, so I'm assuming that Barrett plays. Kevin Knox is doubtful, so I have him out. Ntilikina is questionable, and I think this one is like a legit questionable. If he ends up being out, Dennis Smith Jr. is about to become the number one value option on the slate. He's going to soak up a ton of point guard minutes. If Ntilikina is in, the only thing that I have any interest in would be Julius Randle for 6,400 on DraftKings. He's at 16% ownership right now. Other than that, I mean, I am not trying to play the Knicks here.
No, yeah. I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. it's a very simple situation. If Ntilikina sits, obvious chalk, great pay down option. If he doesn't, not a thing. Randall, I see that. The minutes are pretty steady. You're looking at 30 plus each and every game, can rebound, actually chipping in with more assists than I would have thought, to be honest. Doesn't give you a ton else, but in a game like this, not bad. Again, you're going to be competing with other guys in other spots, but that might be my one target on the Knicks as well.
I wish I had something else to add here. I don't.
No. I mean, Kevin Knox is doubtful, but I do want to just quickly say he's been so incredibly – I thought that he was going to be like a breakout guy this year. That was not the answer. It's just been bad. And someone like Marcus Morris, I don't think I'm going to get to in a big capacity. I just have no interest in this Knicks team because you're not forced to go there.
That works for me. So we're 6 games in. I think that's the perfect opportunity for everybody to hit the like button.
Yes.
Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Today we've got some free content. Alex's live blog will be free today. The NFL lineup builder will also be free, and NHL ownership percentages. We will be doing some giveaway on the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock stream tonight. 500 likes will unlock NBA rankings. 1,000 likes on the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock stream will unlock NBA ownership. We've got Lofty and Spags coming up at 11 a.m., taking their first look at Week 13 NFL ownership. Jake will have NHL strategy at 4. Alex will have his gameplay and stream behind the paywall at 4 as well. Deeper dive starting at 4:30 Eastern today because of the 14 gamer. That'll be Adam and Lofty. And then myself and Eddie starting whenever Adam and Lofty finish up, taking you guys all the way up till 7 o'clock. We think that today could be our biggest stream ever. Lots of people not going to have work tomorrow, maybe already home. Eddie and I talked about trying to get to 4K today, live viewers.
Ooh, I like it. Lofty, but I like it.
Yeah, we were like 3,400 or whatever last Wednesday. I think that we could try to get everybody if everybody's home. So tell your friends, friends. We're shooting for 4,000 people tonight live. Come join us.
I'll be there.
Perfect. Turn on both of those laptops you got. 2 separate streams.
Yeah. I'll do that. I'll put it on the TV. We'll game the system. So now we only need 3,997.
Perfect. All right. Now we can get into some legitimate options. Houston Rockets, Miami Heat. Houston 116.25 implied total. Heat 110.75. Rockets looking pretty good in this spot, although Miami defense 5% better than average right now, limiting fantasy points on a per possession basis. They've been a little gross. No thanks to not James Johnson. Shout out to Dave for nothing. James Harden is 11.6 on FanDuel, 11.8 on DK, 20,900 on Fantasy Draft, and $58 on Yahoo. He's grabbing 19% ownership on FanDuel. His partner, Russell Westbrook, 8,600 on FanDuel, $3,000 cheaper, 30% owned. The guys are both in single digits on DK. Only guy in double digits, one Daniel House, 4,500, 16% ownership. I probably want a little bit more Harden on FanDuel relative to the field. I think that the Russell Westbrook ownership looks correct. On DraftKings, I probably prefer Russ to Harden. Neither one stands out as like crazy guys that I want to get to. And I think that the Daniel House relative chalk is appealing. What do you like from Houston?
Yeah. So, we mentioned guys like Terrence Ross, Khem, Birch. I feel much more comfortable paying down with a guy like House. The Rockets, just a team that, they breed fantasy goodness. And the Heat's defense, it's been a little better, but I still expect plenty of opportunities across the board here. I'm in line with you. Westbrook, if I had to pick one on DraftKings, probably take the pay down option, save that money and spend it elsewhere with Westbrook. So what do you have? I know we're kind of hitting them as they come along. We got Capella is sick. You have him projected in?
I do have Capella in right now. Houston just tends to play everybody through everything. They already don't have enough guys. If he is out, last time he was out, Russ actually sat out as well on Saturday the 16th. Isaiah Hartenstein got 30 minutes in that one. Chris Clemens, your boy, played 28 minutes in that one. But the game before that, on the 15th, Capella also out. Tyson Chandler got 24 minutes there. So I would say we're going to see Tyson Chandler play roughly 20 minutes if Capella is out. That's not all that appealing to me. Hartenstein probably not going to be that appealing to me. I don't think it really matters for anyone on the Rockets other than just cementing minutes for people. I don't think it makes anybody go from nothing to something.
Yeah, I think that's well said. It just kind of shores up what I already had interest in. Not going to bring guys that I don't think are in play suddenly in play. So I'm with you there. I don't know. I just looking at the slate, Harden, of course, is fantastic. I don't think he's my preferred spend up option. And I think overall balance is my preferred build. So it's kind of a double hurdle for me to get to a lot of him on this slate.
I would rather get Towns, but I think that Harden might be second for me if we're talking DraftKings. On FanDuel, it all depends where the value shows up at each specific position. You're basically playing like 5 different games in one on FanDuel.
Yeah. Towns is a guy we will get to. I like him a lot as well. anything. Yeah, I don't have much else from Houston. I have a couple things on the Heat, as I think most people do.
Before we get to the Heat, I have to point this out. Daniel Mardorf in YouTube chat. Thanks for all the content and entertainment. Happy holidays and appreciate all the hard work. Even Spags. Let's win some DFS money. $50 super chat.
Oh,
The biggest one we've gotten, except for it's the biggest single super chat we've received. Steve Finkelstein sent in multiple $10 on the Deeper Dive 2 nights ago. I don't remember what that total ended up being, but Daniel, seriously, happy holidays to you and all of yours. That is a dramatic number for a super chat. I hope that wasn't an accident and it was supposed to be $5. But
yeah, support email. We'll tell the story in an hour, but no, much appreciated.
We really, really appreciate it. And I really do love the subtle shot at Spags in that as well. Just perfect.
Yeah, chef's kiss there, no doubt.
And not even a question in there, just a shout out and a thanks. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So the Heat side, highest ownership for anybody in this game. Jimmy Butler 6% on DK. No one else above 2. What do you like from Miami?
So I mean, it's just because I don't want to say anticipated, but I didn't think Bam would be super popular, and that's a guy to me has the ceiling. The range of outcomes is massive, but just can be highly productive. Can chip in with blocks and steals. Double threat. I'm not, and maybe this is a better question for you. I don't think it's a huge deal whether Capella plays or not in terms of what he can do. And at this salary, I don't think going to be overly popular. So I have some interest there as a very low owned guy who can really give you a ceiling performance at $7,500.
Yeah, I think that Bam will look pretty good. That'll definitely be a boost to him and Miami if Capella ends up sitting. And Bam looks like a perfectly reasonable play to me. If I see who's around him, 7,500. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So not that these numbers that I'm about to read off are going to matter to anybody, but I look at target score relative to $1,000 of salary, and 1.9, 1.9, 1.8, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, 1.8, 1.7. That's everybody in this group of like $7,900 to $7,200. All of those change, like those tenths of a percent are like, they are not big swings. I basically have like 10 guys projected as the exact same thing at the exact same price. And Bam is part of that group of,
yeah.
Like,
And I don't
know
even
how to get to you guys.
It's difficult, I guess. I mean, it's a pretty simple. When you have 14 games, though, when these guys are this low owned potentially, it's pretty easy for me to say, okay, I can roll the dice on some of them, still get leverage, and yeah, some of them are going to fail. But in that group that you just rattled off, somebody's going to have a big game.
Oh, yeah. It's a great group of guys, too. Sabonis, Van Vliet, Dinwiddie, Wiggins, Mitchell, Simmons, Adebayo, DeMar DeRozan, Jason Tatum, Chris Paul, Eric Bledsoe. You're expecting 2 or 3 of those guys to hit 7, 8x and have like a really good day.
And when you have multiple of them, say 3 to 5% or something in terms of the ownership with the field, you're already really whittling down these tournaments. And that's huge. It's not like Blake Griffin, where I'm not saying he can't have a big game, but that's just going to be one small piece of the puzzle if that's what you do tonight and you get that right.
This is exactly why you don't play Blake Griffin at 26% ownership.
Correct.
Every one of those guys that we just named. So I don't mind getting to Bam. I think that that's a reasonable spot. Right now I'm having trouble sifting through that area. It's going to go to somebody, but I won't know that until we're closer. All of those guys are just mildly viable. They're not locks. Those things do exist in a way. They're not on this team today. Pace up spot for Miami. Something to keep in mind.
Yep.
Goran Dragic for, 5K FanDuel, 5,500 on DraftKings. Could be interesting, but Justice Winslow should be back. Spoelstra spoke that he would not be playing like large minutes in this return. I've got him in for 20. That should negatively affect a couple people, but I have no idea how this is going to shake out. He's been out for a while.
Yeah, it's just another, to me, it just muddies the waters rather than presents a target to buy on him. Yeah, I mean, I looked at guys and I wanted to mention Tyler Hero just because I really like him. I think he's a damn good player. I just don't know if I will get there, to be honest.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough sell for today.
Yeah.
He can shoot his way into a good game, but like
he can. I mean, he's that type of guy. It's just today, those are just things you don't need to do on a slate this big.
Yeah. So much harder to get that piece right.
Yeah, I do need him. You think he is even remotely alive to win Rookie of the Year?
I don't even think he's the most likely rookie of the year on his own team.
That's not a good sign.
No,
probably true though.
Right now, it's probably Morant and Kendrick Nunn.
Yeah.
And then if Zion can ever get back on the floor and like go really crazy in 50 games, he'll get steam. Tyler Hero needs some injuries.
He really, yeah, all of them apparently. So sick. All right. Yeah, I don't really have anything else on the Heat, do you?
No. Grizzlies and Clippers. Grizzlies 6.5-point underdogs at home against the Clips. Grizzlies defense bad. Clippers defense good. Should be a relatively quick game. Ja Morant questionable. Took a bit of a spill in the last game. We should know after a shoot around whether or not he's looking in or out. I have him in for right now. No real ownership coming in here. Jay Crowder at 10% on FanDuel. Dylan Brooks at 11 on DraftKings. I think Joval for 6,200 on DraftKings is like the most appealing piece, but again, there's just a sea of dudes in that section going up against LA. I have a hard time wanting to get much from Memphis.
Yeah, even though the Clippers played last night, this is just a bad spot. Now, I'm sure most people realize this. If Ja Morant sits, Tyus Jones is going to be another very popular spend down option, and that makes perfect sense to me. He's very cheap, would be thrust into big minutes. So that's really what I'm waiting for with Memphis, because if Morant plays, there's a very real chance that I actually have no exposure to the Grizzlies, and I feel just fine about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If Ja is out, Tyus Jones then becomes one of the best plays, probably the best dollar for dollar play on the slate, given his talent and the amount of minutes he'll likely have to play. 3,200 on DraftKings. You got to assume that he'd be projected for 30 minutes and 26 or so fantasy points, and that would just be insanity. Yeah,
and if that happens, not to get too crazy, but I will say, if someone like Tyus Jones is firmly in play, if Ntilikina sits and DSJ is there, I think you're going to see a bump to the elite top tier guys just because of the build. It's going to funnel to more stars and scrubs, and that can give better leverage to that next tier guys of the Embiid caliber in terms of salary, instead of maybe going up to Harden, Giannis, LeBron types.
Yeah, the moment that starts to open up, Giannis, Harden, Towns, AD, Trae Young, that ownership starts to climb.
Yep.
Everybody that I just mentioned there is no more than 4% right now. Those numbers will get bigger. On the Clippers side, we're not going to have Kawhi today. He played yesterday. Whoa.
Uh-oh. It's a one-up. My goodness.
Yeah, let's go ahead and stop here. Christian Lemons super chat. Shout out to Josh for all his videos on using Fantasy Cruncher. I didn't know how to max enter before this season, and I've profited 27,000 already this season. I couldn't have done it without the knowledge you put out. $100 super chat.
Fantastic.
Congrats
the
on
only
27K.
Criticism is you should have just mentioned, Jazz Raz on the NBA show. This is what I live for. But I guess we'll let that slide. Much appreciated, my friend.
Hundy Spot, congratulations on the 27K. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Whatever I'm supposed to say, whatever the socially appropriate way to say, I hope that you enjoy tomorrow's holiday and the Christmas season. Whatever I'm supposed to say for that, just assume that that's what I'm saying. Thank you to you and everyone around you. That is a really awesome super chat donation. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Best of luck to you moving forward, too. I'm glad that everything that I've done has been able to help you out.
No.
I was not ready for that.
No, I was going to say, I don't know. I watch this show most days because I think it's a great show. I don't know. Is it just making it rain all the time in here and I miss that usually? Because we got some money coming in. It's much appreciated.
Meanwhile, Dave comes in with $4.99. Perfect timing, Dave. No, but all things considered, all jokes aside, thank you very much. Wasn't necessary to do. Dave's been An awesome
Staple.
member from the jump. Yeah. So thank you very much, James Johnson Fan Club. Keep up the good work, boys. I'm being cheap with the donating. I mean, you donate with a premium sub every month, so we appreciate it.
And there's no such thing as being cheap with donating. Anything is just straight appreciated, no doubt about it.
And obviously, we need to have Ben on these shows more often.
I'm taking credit for all this, even though I have nothing to do with it. Let's. You know what? It's getting the Jazz Raz internal good stuff for me. I will go brag that I had some reason for this, even though I'm literally probably a detractor. But
not at all.
Where are we we're on the clip joint?
Yeah. I had to. Obviously, I had to take the break on the Hundy spot there.
No, fair enough.
Paul George, 5% owned on FanDuel, 12% owned on DraftKings. I like that quite a bit. It's only going to get better as the day goes on. Lou Will, 5% owned on FanDuel. At 6,900 on DraftKings, he's only 15%. I like that a lot. That is just way too low. The fact that he's owned less than Blake Griffin is just craziness to me. I'd be happy to get to a little bit of Montrezl Harrell. He's unowned. I think JaMychal Green for 3,600 is like a value guy that no one's playing that I'd be okay with playing, but like not a lot of.
You don't need a lot, which is nice.
I really like a couple pieces from the Clippers here, a little bit more than what they're getting owned.
Yeah, I like, we saw these guys last night, but as you mentioned, we haven't heard it. I haven't heard it, but Kawhi probably not going to be there. And that Lou Williams is playing, he played 33 minutes last night. Him and Harrell are interesting mid-range targets for me. They can work, get the pick and roll going. Don't think they're going to garner a ton of ownership. JaMychal Green, truth be told, not someone I really considered. I think it's mostly because I don't know how often I'm going to need someone that cheap, which is kind of what I'm visualizing in terms of my builds. But if the value, and it's mostly guards anyway, but like if the Tyus Joneses of the world don't materialize, you may be forced into guys like Green, and I don't mind that.
Right. Yeah. He is in play for me right now because no news has broken. So he is a guy that I have him in for 22 minutes. He's like a 0.85-ish fantasy point per minute guy. That's just kind of tolerable at 3,600. He just happens to be like the best of a bad situation. As soon as any of that starts to open, he just goes away as being interesting.
Correct. Yeah, that's pretty much in line with, and I think with so many of those, I don't want to call them coin flips. I have a feeling we get at least one of these very obvious value guys to emerge from all the Q tags that we have across this slate.
Yeah. Anything else you want to touch on from the Clippers?
No, I mean, it's very obvious. We got to keep an eye on the, Kawhi, Paul George. We'll see what shakes out. And from there, I think who you want to target is going to open up on its own. It'll be pretty self-explanatory.
Agreed. Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks, 127 implied total for the Bucks, 112.5 for the Hawks. Monster number. Milwaukee highest implied total. George Hill already out. Chris Middleton back. Going to be on a minutes limit. Atlanta, terrible defensively. This is the biggest pace spot of the day. I don't think I'm missing anything else regarding Milwaukee. Giannis's brother has an illness. Dude doesn't play, so it doesn't really matter. So everything that I just said, all this crazy pace up spot, there's no ownership here. Giannis is at 18% on FanDuel because he's 12-7. He's essentially unowned on DraftKings at 12-4. That number is going to change dramatically if value starts to open up because he will look pretty damn good here. I really like Dante DiVincenzo. 5K on FanDuel, 5K on DraftKings. He's the guy that I want to dig into most. There's no other ownership coming in for any of these guys. DiVincenzo played 33 minutes in the most recent game. With George Hill out, and he started and he just played a ton from start to finish. I see no reason that he doesn't get similar minutes. I gave him 30, so that's 3.5 minutes less than what he played in that spot. I had no problem filling in minutes for the rest of the team. I even had some left over in general. Kyle Korver barely played in their last one. Robin Lopez only got 2.8 minutes, so I think I feel comfortable with DiVincenzo, and he is currently like one of my best, if not like my favorite dollar for dollar plays on the slate. I didn't expect to say that earlier today. Give me your thoughts on Milwaukee in general.
So DiVincenzo is interesting because, as you mentioned, I like to target spots where the minutes come up, and he's 2 for 10 in that game. If he had an efficient shooting game, I think he would be much more noticed across the industry. Do you worry about what Middleton? I know he's going to be on a limit in terms of how that's going to impact him. Do you think it does at all?
Sort of. Like it certainly has to a little bit, but with George Hill out, then I'm not sure who loses the minutes. Like DiVincenzo played a 7.5 minute stretch to start the game against the Jazz. He played all but like 45 seconds in the second quarter. He started the third and came back in the third and came back out on the floor for a decent chunk in the fourth. I just expect them to get, like, Kyle Korver got one rotation through the first and second quarter and then didn't see the floor again. I think it's more likely that Kyle Korver just doesn't get into the rotation.
Cut out.
George Hill's minutes can go direct. If George Hill really, or if Chris Middleton really is limited, then basically George Hill's minutes can just go to Chris Middleton.
Fair enough.
Robin Lopez played 1 4-minute stretch or 2.5 minute stretch, never saw the floor again. So I think that the minutes are there. I wouldn't expect anything lower than like 26.
Yeah, and I mean that's really what you can, at this price tag, you have some room. Before that 33 minutes against Utah, he was playing in the mid-20s, and it wasn't like, oh, he's way off. Yeah. Like, he can get there with that. Now, of course, it's a little narrower path, but if he gets going, there's no doubt about it. I think it's pretty obvious. I don't want to speak for you. I think Middleton is absolutely not in play.
Correct.
Just don't go there. And then you mentioned him earlier. I think Eric Bledsoe is one of several guys on this slate. They're not going to be popular. It's hard to prioritize them, but if he's been minutes, we'll hang here and there. And perfect matchup. I don't mind using him as one of those upper middle tier guys to fill out a roster.
We're on the same page here. He was basically like, DiVincenzo was playing as the backup point guard and just the guy getting run. Like, Eric Bledsoe had 1 foul in the first quarter. He came off in the middle of the quarter. The Bucks went on a 15-5 run. DiVincenzo was on for that run. DiVincenzo came off and then started back up in the second quarter again. Eric Bledsoe was not out there. When DiVincenzo came out for a minute, that was the minute that Eric Bledsoe came back on the floor, picked up 2 more fouls, and DiVincenzo came back on. So he is, in theory, picking up some extra minutes there, but they also, I'm also confused by why they would run DiVincenzo to start the second quarter as well. So if you want to take away 4 minutes or so that you would have expected Eric Bledsoe to finish off that quarter, I can see it, but I don't see any situation where he's playing less than 28 minutes. And if that's the case, I think that he's still like a really solid value at 5K.
Yeah, you said you haven't projected for 30. I think that may be a touch much, but again, in the ballpark, and 25 would seem as an absolute floor. And if he's in that upper 20s, low 30s, he's going to have some room to really, really smash the tag. And at home, the Hawks got everything you really want. So what do you, I guess we can move on, but I did want to ask real quick, if value doesn't open up, what are you going to do with Giannis? Are you going to force some in, or is that someone you're willing to live without?
I'm way more likely to get him on FanDuel than I am on DraftKings.
Okay.
On DraftKings right now, I think it's a little tough. I would just much rather have Towns for 2,100 less. And I think that I would probably rather just have the other $600 and get to Harden.
I agree.
I'll be happy with any bit of Giannis that I get, but as of right now, I think it's just too difficult.
Yeah.
On the Atlanta side, little bits of ownership coming to some of these guys. Trae Young, a little owned on FanDuel. Jabari for 6,400 on DraftKings, picking up a little bit of love. I think he's the best play on both sites. Revenge narrative, I guess. Yeah. DeAndre Hunter, 10% owned on FanDuel. Cam Reddish, 10% owned on FanDuel. All I really want here is Trae Young and some Jabari.
Yeah, not much. Again, I'm not blowout risk, yeah, it's there. I'm not going to really worry about that. If it materializes, it could go south. Jabari, I don't love the stupid, revenge narrative. You can't quantify that. I think it increases his ownership probably arbitrarily, but just some people go there that maybe wouldn't. He is playing well, though, and he is in play. Trae Young, yeah, I mean, just one of those guys up top. He's going to be tied, correlated strongly to the value that opens up. I have guys like Towns ahead of him. I know totally different positions, obviously, but not my priority, even when we're talking about the spend up options.
Yeah, he's not a huge priority for me on DK, but on FanDuel, even though he is the most expensive point guard, he is the guy that I'd like to pay up for. I like him in Westbrook, and then I don't really like much else at the high end. So I'll end up getting to a little bit here.
It's like for me, even on FanDuel, I think I would honestly rather bump to Simmons and save a little.
Alrighty, I've got a pretty big gap between the two.
Okay, fair enough.
I can understand it. That's a really good spot for him against the Kings. I don't have anything else for this game.
No. Yeah, the Hawks times are tough. Just not a good spot for them.
Speaking of teams that are having tough times, San Antonio Spurs, Minnesota Timberwolves. Big time pace up spot for San Antonio. They are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Wolves. Aldridge, low double digits in ownership. Derek White, same sort of story on FanDuel. I really like Jakob Poeltl for 4,500 on DK. I mean, because there's no value out there yet. As that comes in, he will become less interesting. We sort of touched on that before. I feel the same sort of way for Derek White for 4,400. I think those guys are value that exists now that probably won't exist at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then I think I have some interest in Lamarcus Aldridge for 6,900 on DraftKings. That's kind of gross because he's not the same guy anymore.
No, those Portland days are long in the rearview mirror, but I'm kind of in line with you. And again, what you're doing is what you're doing on most slates. You're weighing these value guys against some of the other ones. And I think if nothing changed, I would actually lean to the Spurs guys over some of like the Magic value that we talked about previously with Poeltl and White. I have no problem with that. One other guy that I'm somewhat interested in, I think very reasonable floor, and the ceiling can be fine. DeMar DeRozan, he's 7,400 on DraftKings. Minutes are going to be there. The volume's going to be there. I have no problem with him. He's not a priority, but I feel very comfortable if that's where I end up at a shooting guard or small forward.
Yeah. I'm happy to cycle through some of these Spurs guys, which I didn't expect to say before this started, but I think there's a little bit of value to be wrung out of them, unfortunately. Kind of gross. 538 has them projected with the worst record in the West.
Whew. That's crazy.
Yeah. 2 full games behind the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I feel like I bet, and if you know anything about the Spurs, you know how all these bets have turned out, them not to make the playoffs like 5 consecutive years, and they always seem to find a way. Don't know about that this year, obviously.
We touched on Towns before. 10-9 on FanDuel, no ownership. 10-3 on DraftKings, no ownership. 18-1 on Fantasy Draft. $50 on Yahoo. I like Towns clear across the board. He is my favorite pay-up option on DraftKings. He is my favorite center option that isn't value on FanDuel. I want a bunch of Towns. I'm not worried about this game at all. Spurs are going to have no problem giving up threes, and Towns is certainly shooting them this season, close to 1.5 per minute from a fantasy perspective. I'm not really looking at anything else from Minnesota, but I definitely want Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yes, sir. I am right with you. $50 on Yahoo, like him even over there. Just Towns is a priority for me tonight. I think this is a fantastic spot for him. We've talked about some of the other great players, and they are. I have Towns ahead of basically all of them. And the price, of course, it's premium, but it's not nosebleed Giannis style by any stretch. Yeah. So you do save a bit. Wiggins, it's just a touch much in terms of the price, particularly on DraftKings for me is almost 8,000. I think I would bump down to some of the other guys we've talked about and save, on a slate like this, saving $500 is a real thing. And you can use that to upgrade at other positions.
Yeah, I would rather just drop to someone like Lou Will or even
Definitely.
Aldridge in this own game in this game, Kelly Oubre, something like that. Just save some money. I think.
Yeah, I would drop to DeRozan in the same game
Yeah,
before I would go.
I like that.
So, yep. And Tobias, another guy similar. You're getting $1,200 discount on DraftKings.
This is just the Towns game for me, and then scattered value from the Spurs. I'm good to go if you're ready to go.
That's where I'm at.
All right. 4 games to go, 22 minutes to go. I think we're timing this out pretty good, especially with the breaks we needed to take for $150 worth of super chats.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's derailing us, and it's a good derailment, is people just dropping donations. So we're on track here. I haven't royally ended the stream just yet, and as I'm safe to report, the leaf blowers are long gone. We are rocking and rolling in the Raza household.
Perfect. Don't be afraid to hit that like button one last time. I think that number is kind of low for what we've got in here. We've got 757 people, only 146 likes per the count on my screen. I think we could easily get that above 200 just quickly. So hit that thumbs up. Those rewards are just as good as super chats. Yeah, we're at 154.99. I hope that I'm not. I don't want to exclude the $4.99 that came in from Dave.
Yeah, no, that counts all the no, come on, people. It's much appreciated. And then
thumbs ups.
God, there's so many college basketball games. We got a lot going on today. This is gonna be a wild one.
Phoenix Suns, Washington Wizards, 125.25 implied total for the Suns, 117.25 for the Wizards. Wizards on the back-to-back, right? Yeah, they played yesterday, right? Yeah,
they did. They played the Nuggets.
Pace up spot for Phoenix. By all accounts, Ricky Rubio is back. We still don't have Aaron Baines or obviously DeAndre Ayton. Booker, 8,400 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DK. I like his Yahoo price of $31 most of all. He came up in every cheat sheet. I had a ton of him. I expect to have a ton of him tonight. Big fan of Devin Booker. Is getting some ownership. Speaking of ownership, Kelly Oubre, 22% on FanDuel. He's 6,900, same price as DraftKings. Ricky Rubio at 5,500 on DK, 28% ownership. I completely agree with it. One of my favorite values on the slate, given that price. And Frank Kaminsky, 4K on FanDuel for reasons that make no sense to me. I have him in for 26 minutes. He pretty much has to play those minutes, and he is projected for 42% ownership. 5K on DraftKings, 2% owned. So what stands out to you from Phoenix?
Yeah, it's a pretty good spot actually for the Suns. But I think across the board, it's a team that I'm not going across the board in sight. So there are certain guys on certain sites, as you just highlighted. You've got Kaminsky, Booker on Yahoo specifically, and he's probably the one I feel most comfortable maybe across the board with. He is someone, he's in that tier that I keep referencing. He's not at the top, but you can load up on 3 or 4 of those guys in the, the 8K-ish range and build a very solid lineup and fill it out with some of that value that we already know. Now, if more opens up, maybe you take someone like Booker or anyone and you upgrade to that next tier. But I feel very good about him. Oubre is someone, it's just a very loaded range, and we've referenced so many guys there. I don't mind him in a vacuum, but I think I have him behind some of the guys, whether it be the Clippers, Tobias Harris-esque people. We mentioned a couple others in that high 6s, low 7K range.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I find some appeal in the fact that he's only 7% owned, and we've got the Devontae Graham, Malcolm Brogdon. Well, Brogdon doesn't really count for me. Well, I guess he does. Other than Kemba, who I think is just broken from a price point. We've got a lot of these guys that are in the 15 to 20% ownership range. I kind of like Oubre as a pivot there for DK. I think that he's a bit more appealing on FanDuel just because of the way the positions work.
So I'm 100% in line with that. I think for me, I want to pivot off those chalky guys, but I don't know if I pivot with Oubre specifically. A couple of the other guys that I like in that range, I don't think are going to garner a lot of ownership either, and I think they just edge out Oubre slightly.
That's fair. It's a loaded area.
Yes.
It will help to get some value to open up just to thin that herd and keep me away from it. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty tough. Do you have any thoughts on Frank Kaminsky at 4K on FanDuel? I assume we're on the same page that chalk looks correct.
Yes. And it just, as you spoke about the ownership, that on DraftKings, not nearly the same scenario for obvious reasons. So he is someone, FanDuel, I have no problem paying for that, taking the ownership and looking to differentiate elsewhere.
Well, on the Wizards side, Bradley Beal 9,500 on FanDuel, 9,600 on DraftKings. Thomas Bryant 67 and 6K respectively. Beal at 21% owned on FanDuel. Thomas Bryant 19% owned on DraftKings. Otherwise, there's not ownership coming in to this team. And those are the only two guys that I want. 6K Thomas Bryant is very much on my radar. I don't disagree at all with that ownership. Do you want anything else from Washington?
So I was interested. I thought you might mention in terms of just where the ownership is falling. Is Jordan Mccray not getting love as a possible pay down guy just coming off of last night?
0 ownership.
Interesting. Now it's kind of an opposite, and this is what you kind of have to deal with NBA. If you told me he was coming in, say 20% owned, I probably was going to mention that, I'm not really there, and I think you can go elsewhere. If he is not going to garner any ownership, and we don't get guys like Tyus Jones in here, he is someone I might take stabs with on lineups that I go a little more aggressive, sub 4K on DraftKings.
That's the takes that people are coming for. He's played 24 and 24 minutes in the past 2 games. I only gave him 20. I might be underselling him a little bit, but they've also run sort of weird rotations. Like yesterday, Beal only played 29.7 minutes. Normally he plays 40. So I don't know if they're just kind of flattening everybody out heading into the holidays, or if this is just a tactical decision. Coaching is up in the air for this team.
Yeah, coaching's debatable.
If I got Mccray to that number, like that 24 number again, he would certainly be viable at those price tags.
And I think I don't want to say that's what's going to happen, of course, but I think that's a very reasonable target in terms of his minutes. And at this price, with the added possibly limited ownership, I feel okay doing that.
Okay.
Oh, we got
David Blakeney. Yeah, David Blakeney. This was supposed to be $1,000, but my decimal key got stuck on. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks for all the great info every day. Josh. So thanks for nothing to Ben. But David, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Legalized.
And then we got $2 from Legalized. You trying to buy your way back in, brother? Because it's not going to happen.
It's worth its weight in gold. Fellow New Yorker, I believe. So
yes,
much appreciated.
We do. Thank you very much. That's not going to be enough from you, Legalized.
But it can't hurt.
You try to buy Goodwill. New Orleans Pelicans, Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers 6-point favorites in New Orleans. I'm not even going to look. There are no revenge narratives here. It's like 2/3 of this entire game.
Seriously.
So we're going to go ahead and skip that. But got a lot to talk about. El Negro Loco, $2 super chat. With the poo emoji in there. Shouts to El Negro Loco. Also, very much friend of the program. Long-term sub. We got to 200 likes, by the way. I'm trying to pull up Roto World's depth charts just to make sure I get this right. So, Lonzo is questionable. He has a stomach bug, and his status is quote-unquote up in the air. I have him in. I'm sure he's just nervous to play LA because he's soft. Josh Hart is listed as questionable. Alvin Gentry said he's likely to play, so I have him in. Derek Favors listed as questionable. Did not practice yesterday, so I have left Derek Favors out. We are not projecting any legitimate ownership in this game except for Lonzo Ball for 4,900 on DraftKings. I assume right now that if Derek Favors is out, Jackson Hayes for 4,400 on both FanDuel and DraftKings is going to be one of the best value plays of the day. I have him in for 28 minutes, just under a fantasy point per minute play. He's going to be one of my favorite value options. Actually, Josh Hart isn't on my sheet. That's a good point. Why did I not project Josh Harden? Makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he is expected to play.
Yeah, that was not intentional. I just wonder what I typed in that spot. Either way, Jackson Hayes has nothing to do with Josh Hart. I'm going to be playing quite a bit of Jackson Hayes if Favors is out. You could talk me into a little bit of Drew Holiday. What do you like from the Pels?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson Hayes, clear value. It's just about prioritizing what's going to open up. This game is one of the, I think, murkier in terms of injury. We got just a lot of levels of injuries from guys that are expected to play to someone like, I don't want to say that Favors just isn't, but I wouldn't be stunned to see him sit. What do you think about Brandon Ingram? Tag is up there, playing well. Do you have interest for him as a loaded range, but one where you're not paying the absolute premium for a superstar?
So I think that he's a little too expensive. He's been phenomenal so far this season. 1.28 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days. I think that he's priced correctly if you think that continues. The amount of regression that I have in my model brings him down to the point where I don't think that I would get to him. I don't necessarily think that 1.28 is going to be the new normal. And if it's not, that becomes a tough sell for me. Lakers defense has been fantastic this season. It's not really a pace up spot for the Pels. So I only really like Jackson Hayes here.
I think that's reasonable. If this was a smaller slate and Ingram was isolated, I would probably force some and say, you know what, he is playing fantastic. He's in a weird price range, but there's just a bunch of guys that I have similar that are just a little cheaper.
Yep.
And ownership is not a factor with any of these guys right now. So that's where I'm at. There's a lot of guys that I gave hard looks to. You mentioned Drew, but honestly, I didn't come up with much. It's mostly just trying to secure some value at a center position in Hayes.
Pace up spot for the Lakers. LeBron and AD, both relatively expensive. I greatly prefer AD on DraftKings compared to LeBron's 11.5 price tag. I'd be shocked if I had a single share of LeBron on DraftKings. Much more likely to get to 10K AD. On FanDuel, I see them as basically a coin flip, but these guys aren't getting all that much ownership. Are you trying to pay up for the Lakers?
So, it's a situation I feel like people are going, of all the revenge narratives across this slate, of course, Anthony Davis is the premier one.
Which is not revenge at all. He didn't want to play in New Orleans anymore. They acquiesced and got him exactly where they wanted him to go.
Seriously. And so I just feel like there is on sites where they're comparable price. I actually side to LeBron, who's just, it's just absurd. I don't need to talk about why he's very good. On DraftKings, that's not the case. There's a significant gap, and that forces me, if I'm going to pay up for a Laker, it would be Davis. But on a site where it's comparable, I actually lean LeBron there, which maybe you get an ownership discount because he doesn't have any revenge narrative, like the only guy in this game. But other than that, are you seeing value from the Lakers, or are you just talking about the big two?
All I really see is LeBron and AD on FanDuel. Same. I mean, Dwight is sort of viable the way that things are set up right now for 4,200, but that is a very limited upside option. I won't get to any Lakers outside of LeBron and AD.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. Rondo is someone that, the minutes, mid-20s, I get it. I just don't know if I'm really going to need to go there, honestly. Do you have thoughts on him? Did you even consider him?
Not at all.
Okay. Fair enough.
24 minutes, just... There's going to be a day where he plays 32 minutes just on a random day because that happens from time to time. If it's that day, then I'm going to be mad, but it's not on a 14-gamer.
Yeah, I think that's kind of in line with my philosophy on it too. Even if he has a somewhat effective game, I don't think I'm going to look tomorrow and say, oh, that's what killed me, not playing Rondo. How often is that going to happen?
I'm willing to die on that one.
Same.
Blazers and Thunder. Blazers 3-point favorites in Oklahoma City. Not a ton here. Hassan Whiteside is at 26% ownership on DraftKings. I like him, but not that much. I think he's way, way over-owned, given sort of some of the situations. And if Jackson Hayes opens up, that just goes away. So while I don't mind getting to a little bit of Whiteside, I don't really want any part of Portland. Dame is 10% owned on both sites. Now, not having some of Dame is one of those things that make you nervous. He obviously ended Oklahoma City's season last year and their run. he waved goodbye to Paul George and Russell Westbrook straight out of Oklahoma City after hitting that buzzer beater. I'm pretty much good on Portland. Like, it's just not that slate for me today.
Yeah, I mean, Dame is someone you can. It's not a hard sell to make a case for him, but I'll just put it to you like this. And I don't know about you, but I have Booker just ahead of him, and they're basically identical in price.
Same.
So that's really where that goes. Whiteside, you mentioned, going to be popular. So I probably am going to try to spend all the way up with someone like Towns or take the value with guys we've already mentioned. And then other than that, when you start getting to the kind of peripherals on the Blazers, they don't do much for me. We have so many other options in so many other games. I'm willing to let those guys go by the wayside.
Perfect. On the Oklahoma City side, Danilo Gallinari at 14% owned on DK is the only guy in double digits of ownership. I will continually play 5 to 10% of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander each night. I will likely continue to burn the money on those lineups, but I'm not trying to get much from Oklahoma City here either.
No, neither am I. But Alexander is someone who is interesting. The minutes are steady. He's going to have opportunities. The price is reasonable. He's at the lower end of that massive range that we've talked about, having a bunch of players. So you can work him in there, especially if you're a little strapped for cash. I have no problem going there. And I do think, some big games are kind of coming. I don't think he's been tapping into it at all. And everything lines up in the sense of they set the table for him to have effective games. It just hasn't materialized, certainly steady. But other than that, like you have no interest in like CP3, do you?
Like him and Schroeder are both guys that I would expect could show up in like 5% of my lineups, but nobody is a double digit guy here.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to on the slate. You're going to have your priorities. There's a whole bunch of guys in a whole bunch of games where if they end up on a lineup of mine or I'm funneled to that position, I'll be okay with it. But if they don't, I'll also be okay with that. And I think that's how I could sum up someone like Paul today.
Yeah, that's I can tell you guys the guys that I am for sure going to have a bunch of. And after that, it is just sort of how the rest of the pieces fit around that, because the 30th through the 50th, the 30th through the 70th guy in your player pool are all going to look pretty comparable relative to their salaries.
Yeah. God, who else is there really? I'm trying to think of any other guys that I Nerlens Noel is someone, again, I look to him. It's going to be a product of how much value opens up elsewhere. If nothing opens up, then of course he's going to be a little higher in the pecking order, but he's going to start falling down with each piece that is removed from a questionable tag.
Yep. I mean, as soon as Jackson Hayes, if Favors gets out, then you never play Nerlens Noel.
That's where I'm at too.
Final game, late night hammer. I'd rather hit myself in the face with that hammer. Golden State Warriors, Chicago Bulls. Draymond questionable. Hasn't played in 3 straight. I'd be shocked if he played, but who the hell knows? Otherwise, the Warriors have 8 dudes. I am projecting it as if Draymond is out. Kai Bowman on FanDuel for 5,800 is one of the best values of the day. If that is the case, I'll play a ton of him. I'll be playing him on DK at 6,400 as well. Alec Burks, 6,400 and 6,100. I'll be going right back to that well. He will shoot. He was part of my winning lineup from 2 nights ago, so I'm still okay with him, even though he sucked. I'm going to be playing some Amari Spellman for 4,200 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK. I'll have bits of Pascal and Glenn Robinson and Marquise Chris. The Golden State Warriors are going to make up a lot of my lineups if Draymond Green is out, and I'm going to hate myself for it, but they're playing the Bulls, and the Bulls stink too.
It's hard not to. I mean, there's, like you mentioned, they got limited dudes. Everybody's going to take a ton of shots. The price, since they just don't have the big names, everyone is kind of coupled in that mid-tier, and it really presents out, like you mentioned, Kai Bowman on across the board with sites. He's one of the rare guys that I feel comfortable basically playing him anywhere. The price doesn't deviate a ton. Glenn Robinson is someone I don't mind in that mid-range at shooting guard or small forward with the minutes he's seeing and the shots. You mentioned Alec Burks. I mean, he was 3 for 17 against OKC, and that's going to come. But you know what? That'll temper expectations in terms of ownership a bit. And that's a good thing in my mind. I want my guys to have the opportunity to go 3 of 17.
Yeah.
So sign me back up for that.
I needed 6 points out of him, out of the 18 he had, like fantasy points. That would have been another couple grand.
Disturbing.
Yeah.
But you got to look to these guys in some capacity, despite it just being a dumpster fire team.
Yeah, I'm going to have a ton of these guys. But if Draymond is out, Amari Spellman, Kai Bowman, and Birch are my favorite guys on FanDuel. Same guys on DK as well.
Yeah, I think that's Kai Bowman to me is someone I feel very comfortable using in those other guys, even the wings. I know there's a bunch of them, but like Pascal and Robinson, they're going to have opportunities. So you can mix and match them with however you choose.
On the Bulls side, no one in double digits in ownership. And I agree with it. No one stands out outside of Markkanen for 5,800, and he has just been so bad this season that I can't even really justify it. You would think that Golden State would make anybody look better. We shall see. But I don't get the sense that I'll have much of the Bulls. Now, that will scare me in terms of like someone like Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I mean, LaVine, we know. But again, it's the theme of this slate for me. LaVine on DraftKings is 7,100. That is the mega range. I listed like 10 guys in other games that I like at that range. So just not a priority. Kobe White, a little cheaper. I do think he has some upside, boom bust, but mints are a little all over the place. And I think you can get away from that pretty easily on a slate like this. So I'm more in line with you than not, in the sense that I'd like some exposure to the Bulls, but I don't see a clear target to really funnel my lineups to them.
Yeah. Like I think LaVine will look a lot better if we start to get a little bit more value, just because I think there's some upside here.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
And that is it. 14 up, 14 down, 10:59 a.m. with 2 seconds to spare. We hit it on the number.
Easy.
Thank you guys for joining us. Again, Laffy and Spags coming up right now, talking week 13 NFL ownership. We'll be starting the deeper dive at 4:30 today, so we'll have 2.5 hours of NBA content leading you up into lock. Thanks to Ben for joining me today on this strategy show. Thanks to all of the super chat people. You guys came in with tons of scrizzle today. $168 worth. We got 800 people watching the show right now. I'd love to keep it going. Ben, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I mean, everyone, this is not related to the slate. Just have a happy holiday. Enjoy it. It's been an awesome year for everyone. Hope, 14 games, break it down. Good luck, everyone. And like I said, if you're not, we'd love to have you sign up to close out 2019. Jump in Slack with us. Ton of fun in there.
There you go. Shout out to Yahoo Sports for being the presenting sponsor. Use the promo code NBA Strategy to sign up at awesomeo.com. And tune in tomorrow, live before lock, NFL edition. Only one show, myself and Nolan Kelly, talking some Turkey Day pigskin. And that is it. Best of luck, everybody. We will talk to you later.